Hey foodies, Chef Tiki here, and today on Tiki's Tidbit, it's all about herbs and spices. Now let's get started because this could be a huge topic and I don't have that much time and I want to get as much information in as possible. All right, herbs and spices are a huge topic. So, subscriber asked me, when do you use herbs and spices as it relates to which food groups, and when do you put them in? So, two great questions, but at first, I want to give a disclaimer because this topic is so vast. I want to say, personally, I think that there are no rules, no absolute rules, of how and when to use your herbs and spices as it relates to food groups. Whatever you like, use herbs for whatever you like or spices for whatever you like. It's your food, you're eating it, it's your palate. Whatever pleases your palate, go for it. Now, as a rule of thumb, as to answer the second part of that question, when to incorporate your herbs and spices, there is a general rule for that. If you are trying to get the maximum flavor out of your herbs and spices, and that rule is really simple. When you're dealing with dried herbs, you want to make sure you incorporate dried herbs at the beginning of the cooking process. So as soon as you know where you're cooking and you're getting started, you go ahead and drop in those dried herbs. You may even want to rub them together a little bit or rub them in your palms to kind of release some of that flavor as it's going into the pot. The longer you cook, the more flavor is going to be released from dried herbs. Okay, when you're dealing with fresh herbs, rule of thumb there is to incorporate those at the very end of cooking. Sometimes at the table, if you're serving it, you can let people top their dishes with whatever fresh herbs you have. A reason being there is fresh herbs are very delicate. And so you don't want to put them in the cooking process because you will cook out all the flavor and you won't be able to taste it. And the reason why you're adding fresh herbs at the end is because they enhance the flavor. Typically when you've already made a dish, you have dried herbs, and then you're just topping them off with those same fresh herbs. So let's say you use dried basil. You were making some spaghetti, right? And you put dried basil in at the longer part of the cooking process, and then you would top your spaghetti with fresh basil at the end to kind of brighten up the dish. So there you go. Dried herbs go in at the beginning, your fresh herbs go in at the very end. Okay? Now, as far as the herbs and spices go and how you want to pair them with your different foods, that's the part we're going to revert back to. That disclaimers, there is no right or wrong, but there is a general rule of thumb of where and when to use them. All right, first off, let's just start with salt and just get it established that salt is an enhancer. It's not a spice, it's not an herb, it is a flavor enhancer. Whatever a dish tastes like, salt is just going to bring that out. So you can use salt from savory all the way to sweet dishes because it just brings it out. Y'all know growing up, sometimes I used to put salt on watermelon and that was so good because it made it all the more sweeter, because that's what it does. It just enhances what's already there. As far as pepper goes, I see a lot of people when I go to people's houses, and this is not a bad thing, but I do see people use pepper out of those tin cans. If that's your deal, great. I would challenge everybody to invest in a pepper grinder. Buy yourself some fresh peppercorn because there is a tremendous flavor difference between pepper that's already been grinded and then freshly ground pepper. And I would say, for the most part, when you buy pepper that has already been grinded for you, the question is, when was it grinded? So you don't know how long it's been sitting on that shelf or what the turnover rate is for that particular grocery store. And so it just tastes better. Not only, I mean, sometimes you might want to do a little, getting pepper everywhere, but you might want to shimmy for your guest or for your man, or men for your lady. You might want to do a little shimmy with the grind pepper. Do that and it tastes better. So you get 2 for 1 out of getting yourself a grinder. All right, some of the herbs that I tend to use way too much in my kitchen are going to be the Mediterranean herbs, and I absolutely love them. They're not only Mediterranean, or they are Mediterranean, but they cross from either Italy or Greece. But you got your tarragon is one that I use in roasted vegetables a lot. Rosemary is a very distinctive herb that goes a very long way with just a little bit. I tend to like the dried rosemary because even though dried herbs tend to be more powerful, for me with rosemary, I can bear rosemary that's dried a little more than fresh. Fresh is really, really strong and really, really fragrant. And sometimes I don't like the smell, it overpowers, but it has a really good flavor. So the tarragon, rosemary, thyme is, I run to this all the time. Between thyme and dill, I think those are my two overused herbs. So for Mediterranean, we got tarragon, rosemary, thyme, basil, and oregano. So those are fabulous on chickens, on potatoes. Obviously, you use them in your spaghettis and other pastas as well. Then if you want to move over to maybe like a Tex-Mex or Latin America, you're going to run into your cumin, which is my other, when we talk about Latin American or Tex-Mex, I love cumin. It's so, so good. Paprika, the turmeric. Y'all, one time I did a turmeric mask. Needless to say, I had an orange glow for a couple of days. Yeah, they said it was gonna work, but I don't believe Pinterest anymore. I just don't. Also, the paprika I use, this one is a hot Mexican style chili paprika. I mean, a Mexican chili powder. You can get smoked chili powder. You can get sweet chili powder, whatever your palate likes. Also, even cinnamon. Is really, really, when you're talking about Mexican. And then one of the other things, Latin American, and then saffron. Have you ever made paella? It's absolutely divine. But saffron is a really, really expensive spice. And so typically when I make that, it's like a treat in the house because the spice is so much. When you move over to maybe some of the Asian flavors, ginger, fennel, even cinnamon is in Asian flavors as well, and so is turmeric. A lot of these tend to cross and weave together, but it's just a matter of you understanding the base of where they go, and then again incorporating them however you like. Some of the things I don't have here obviously are like ground onion powder, garlic powder, things like that. I usually use fresh onions and garlic, but sometimes using the dried and then also using the fresh just gives that a more flavorful impact. So you can definitely do that. So the tip for today that I want you to remember, and the most important thing, is not so much how you use these flavors or which flavor profile they go with, but when you use them. Dried herbs always go in at the beginning of the dish, and then you're fresh at the very end. Try using some of these things that you've never used before, and just try to use them one at a time and not the whole gamut into your pot, so you can kind of get an idea for what you really like. Well, that's been Tiki's Tidbit for today. I want you to like and subscribe to Tiki's Tidbit. And if you have any questions, just shoot them to me. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions on herbs and spices or anything else that you'd like to see. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.